everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode here at ThePortCast. In recognition of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we do have a special guest with us today. Do you mind introducing yourself and your organization and the role that you have within your organization?
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Grace Clark, and I started an organization called Covering My Sisters. It is a breast cancer organization that provides support to survivors and as well as community education to families, friends, significant others, whomever is affected by breast cancer. I am the founder and the CEO of the organization. And I am also a 23-year breast cancer survivor. When I was diagnosed, I realized I needed a lot of support. And I had support from my family and my friends, but something was missing. And so my sisters found this young lady who was a breast navigator, and she introduced me to an organization called the Witness Project. And from there, I formed relationships with fellow breast cancer survivors. I learned a lot about breast cancer survivors and treatment.
So Covering My Sister offers support to women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer and also survivors of breast cancer. What does that support look like?
So founding the organization, I knew one day that I wanted to give back to the community. I knew I wanted to pay it forward with breast cancer survivors. And so I developed this organization. Actually, one day I was at a conference and God just spoke to me and said, Covering My Sisters. And I was like, what? Who? And so God spoke to me again and said, Covering My Sisters is the name of the breast cancer organization. That was back in 2017, and I never looked back after that. So the organization was founded at that very moment. And what we do, we have a monthly support group. The survivors come in. We talk about the same stuff like, how are you feeling? We talk about self-esteem. We talk about self-worth. We talk about what do you do now? How do you move your life forward in the face of breast cancer or after breast cancer treatment? We still have survivors that are in active treatment now. So we're also providing as much encouragement as possible. We send care packages to newly diagnosed survivors. And what that is, there are certain things that survivors need when they're in treatment. And we usually put the packet together with those things, and we ship them to the survivors, or we hand deliver them to them.
What's the demographic breakdown of women being affected by breast cancer?
Well, interestingly enough, there are a lot of women that are diagnosed with breast cancer. Breast cancer is the most common cancer for women, and it's also the most common cancer for women under 40, from 29 to 49. They usually have the highest rate of diagnosis of that particular cancer. African American and white women are diagnosed probably at the same rate. However, African American women have a greater mortality once they're diagnosed, and they're also diagnosed at advanced stages because we tend to not go to the doctors for insurance purposes. We're afraid to go to the doctor. We don't want to know. We are uneducated about what breast health is and breast cancer is, and so oftentimes we miss the opportunities to be treated early on in these stages of breast cancer. And by the time our women are diagnosed, they're at stage 4, stage 3, and their prognosis is more terminal.
So let's talk about the reluctancy of going to the doctor to get a mammo screening. In terms of poverty, less education, and lack of health insurance, that plays a huge role in the survival rate. How do you address these issues?
Lots of education. We share with the community that there are resources out there to receive a free mammogram. There are doctors, there are clinics now for people who are uninsured or underinsured that allows you to be seen and to receive a clinical exam by your doctor. I think the policies have changed with breast cancer now in most treatments and diagnoses are covered, if they're covered by insurance or they're covered by a breast clinic. So women, they have options now. However, women are not aware of those options, and they also are not aware of what to look for when their breasts start changing. So we provide a lot of education about, what changes happen in the breast that you should be looking for, so you see it early. And early detection is the best cure. So we provide as much education to women, young women and older women, that to help them learn and understand the importance of breast health, the importance of a mammogram, the importance of a clinical exam, the importance of being seen if you feel or see anything abnormal in your breast.
At what age should breast examinations take place, whether that's self-examination or a professional screening?
Self-examinations can start as early as late high school, college students. Everyone, men and women, can complete the breast exam. And there are lots of illustrations out there on how to do a breast exam. You can find it on YouTube. We have lots of information about breast exam. You can find images on Google that shows you exactly how to do a breast exam. So any woman should start, young girls should start doing a breast exam as soon as possible, and especially if you have a family history. And as far as family history, men should, if you know that you have a history of breast cancer in your family, you should also start conducting those breast self-exams. There are diagrams also out there on YouTube and Google search that give you illustrations on how men should complete their breast exam just as much as women do. And then usually they say in your late 20s, early 30s, you should see a doctor for a clinical exam. But that's different for women and men who have a history in their family. If you see any abnormalities in your breast, or you feel any concern about different feelings, you can go to your doctor and have a complete examination and possibly any diagnostic testing that you need.
Is there a disconnect between health insurance, who would suggest that you get a breast examination once a year, versus what a medical doctor feel how often you should actually get a examination?
Well, usually, according to the medical world, you should get a mammogram at age 40. However, if you have any concerns, if you've had a family history, you can receive diagnostic follow-up from your doctor at that particular age. I was actually diagnosed at 39, and my doctor told me that if I had waited until I was 40, my prognosis would have been totally different. So and I had no history of breast cancer in my family at that time. Since my diagnosis and treatment, I've had 5 cousins who were diagnosed, and they're all still alive now. But it is hereditary, and if you do have an extensive family history, and you have to emphasize family history, go to your families, both sides, and find out who in your family has had breast cancer. And from that point, you are eligible to receive care or diagnosis or clinical exam or diagnostic testing if you have any concerns.
So you can have a mammo more than once a year, and the insurance company would actually pay for that.
Yes, if they notice breast changes in your body, you can have mammograms like every 3 months. And what the doctor will order every 3 months to follow that tumor to make sure it's not growing, or if it's precancerous, they'll follow the tumor to make sure that it's not cancerous. And they may even do a biopsy if they think there is a concern. But doctors usually will order every 3 months, every 6 months if they think there is a concern.
Okay, so if there's a concern, then it's okay to have more than one mammo scheduled throughout the year.
Yes, if there's a history and if there's any significant changes to your breast or if there's any concern, yes. And usually, if there's no concerns, then you would have a mammogram yearly.
At one point in time, when you heard the word cancer, it was like a death sentence. That's not necessarily the case now. With the advancement in medical treatment and technology, you have a fighting chance to beat that. How have organizations like yourself contribute to the survival rate and putting out the awareness for breast cancer?
Yeah, speaking of that, I remember when I found out, when they told me that I had cancer, I couldn't even say the word at first. I was like, I got, and I thought it was a death sentence because the only education I received around breast cancer, or the only contact or experience with it, was death. So I really thought that that breast cancer was a death sentence. And now, 23 years later, I realized that it's not a death sentence. And one of the reasons why we share our stories a lot with the community is because we want them to see the hope. We want them to see that, yes, we were diagnosed with breast cancer and we're still here. We don't know how long we're going to be here, but we are still here. And so we try to put a face to breast cancer so people see that there is survivorship, and women and men are surviving breast cancer at much higher rates now than they did in the past. So it's and so now they're trying to figure out what category to put the long-term survivors in, because now there are so many of us, and now doctors are establishing follow-up care for long-term survivors, because the treatments and the treatments are really helping, and they're prolonging life and they're extending the lifespan so that we are living longer, and we are now the new faces of breast cancer.
Breast cancer and cancer as a whole is a individual diagnosis, but it actually affects your family as well. Now, how can your family and friends be a support system to people who are going through these difficult times?
Yes, families, it depends. Some families are very supportive, some friends are very supportive, and then you have people who are not supportive. You have husbands that are not supportive. You have husbands that leave their wives because they can't deal with it, or they leave their wives because they don't want to see the breast changes, and they're so captured by the vanity of the wife that they can't handle when there's changes to the wife. But for the most part, families and friends do support you, and it is important for the survivor to ask for help. People don't know what you need until you ask. And I remember I struggled with that because I was like totally independent and I didn't really count on anyone. And it took a lot for me to ask people for help. And I realized that I needed to let my family and friends be a part of my journey, because they needed that for themselves. And they needed to feel that they were helping me in some kind of way. So it was a very humbling experience, but I did realize the value to allowing people to help you. And it's critical for the survivor to have a community of people who they can go to, who they can count on, to cook meals, to take them to appointments, to just offer them support, to be a listening ear, and they will see if you're doing well enough, and then they may even encourage you to seek professional help if they see that if they're really concerned about you and they see that you're not mentally and emotionally handling the cancer and the care that you're receiving. So it's critical really to have a support system, and also to find a support group. Support groups are invaluable, and I don't say that just because I have a support group, but to talk to like-minded women, to be able to share the scar stories, to share the horror stories of the treatment, just to have someone to validate you and your story. It makes the world of difference, and those are things that you get from a support group that you cannot get from your family or friends.
Okay, so let's talk about myths and facts when it comes to breast cancer and cancer as a whole. So we're going to talk about some of the myths and some of the facts. So the first one, If I don't have a family history of breast cancer, I won't get it.
Not true. That's a myth because I got it. I had no family history. I was about a lot lighter than I am now as far as weight. I worked out 4 times a week and I was a vegetarian, and I was still diagnosed with breast cancer. Mind you, my breast cancer, my tumor was a pencil dot size, but it was the most aggressive tumor, breast cancer tumor. And like I said, if I had waited a full year, my oncologist told me that my prognosis would be different. So, myth, breast cancer can occur without a family history.
Okay. If you maintain a healthy weight, exercise regularly, eat healthy, and limit alcohol, you don't have to worry about breast cancer.
Myth. Again, I can share my own testimony as far as that was concerned. As far as eating, I was a vegetarian. I only ate chicken, and I worked out 4 days a week, and I was about 50 pounds lighter than I am now, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer. The tumor showed up. The breast cancer has no discretion. It has no bias. It hits whoever it hits, and you're diagnosed. It doesn't really matter. And there are studies that say that if you don't drink alcohol or if you don't eat meat, that you most likely will not get cancer, but that is not the case.
Next one. Wearing a bra can cause breast cancer.
No. Tumors grow from the inside. So wearing a bra doesn't make a difference, so that's a myth.
Okay. Using underarm deodorant can cause breast cancer.
You know, I've heard that before and I've read a study about it, but most of the literature that I've read says that using deodorant does not cause cancer.
Next question. Annual mammograms guarantee that breast cancer will be found early.
False. That's a myth. Mammograms can pick up breast cancer, but it may not pick up breast cancer, especially with women that have dense breasts. We do have our last event coming up. It is a pink paint party where we invite women and men to the paint party, and we paint and then we interject some, I call them pink nuggets, where we have people talk about breast health or breast care or family history. And so usually we do that in between the painting.